Hello and welcome to Wonder 2021. You're in the right place. I hope that you've had a great start to lectures if you started this week or last week. And I hope everyone's had a good Christmas holidays and had some good time with their families and so on. And I hope for those that have had them, that exams have gone well and that they weren't too stressful. So I just want to give a very warm welcome on behalf of the CU student body. You're in the right place. I hope. So my name is Will, and I'm a second year maths student here at the University of Leeds. And you might be thinking, what is this event? Maybe those that aren't Christians are thinking, all I know is that one of my Christian mates have invited me to this event. I'm not really sure what it's about. So here's where I come in. These 2 weeks, so it's a 2-week event, are about looking at the claims and ideas of the Christian faith together as students in a relaxed and calm atmosphere under the theme of wonder. Tonight, we'll be hearing a talk from one of our speakers on the wonder of freedom. We'll also be having a student from the Christian Union speak about their experiences of being a Christian and how that has given them freedom. After which, we will be answering any questions that you have regarding the talk on SLI.DO. And for those that don't know, SLI.DO is an online platform where you can anonymously share questions. And to access this, just simply click the link below in the description, or you will be able to see the code that you have to type in on the screen now, which is #wonder. Yeah, and then after that, I'll be kind of wrapping up. And afterwards, why not join us in the Zoom cafe, the Wonder Cafe on Zoom? Well, it will just be like a really chill event where we can just, if you've got friends with you, why not just chat about what you've heard tonight over a drink or so. And it will just be a really nice chill event just to kind of get to know you a bit better, which would be great. So I just thought, as a little fun starter, considering the theme of tonight is wonder, I've been finding wonder in the small things recently. And I just realized that I had a really wonderful breakfast this morning. So I just thought maybe as a fun one, maybe if you'd like to just comment down below what you had for breakfast this morning. I had wheat puffs and they were really nice. So I really enjoyed that. If you'd like to comment that down below. Whilst you're doing that, I've also got some really interesting breakfast facts, which I just think is a bit of fun, really. So did you know that the celebrity in the UK that people would most like to have breakfast with is Holly Willoughby? Pretty interesting. And the world's first breakfast cereal was created in 1863 and needed soaking overnight to be chewable. Oh my gosh, imagine that, gosh. And the world record for the most people eating breakfast in bed is 289. Gosh, imagine how big that bed must have been. My goodness. But I've also got a little challenge for you. I wonder if you can guess how many cornflakes there are in a box of cornflakes. So my options to you are 5,000, 6,000, or 7,000. Comment down below which one you think is which. 5,000, 6,000, or 7,000. Also, hello to those that have just joined in. Hi, you're in the right place. It is indeed Wonder 2021, and it's great to be here with you. Tonight is all about looking at the claims of the Christian faith together in a really nice and relaxed, warm atmosphere under the theme of wonder. Tonight we'll be having a talk from one of our speakers on the wonder of freedom. And we'll also be having a student from the Christian Union speak about their experiences as being a Christian and how that's given them freedom. And then after that, we'll have a chance to answer questions that you will have been putting on SLI.DO. And for those that don't know, SLI.DO is an online platform which you can anonymously post questions. And to access this, simply click the link in the description, or you can type in the code on the screen, which is #wonder. So yes, without any further ado, I'd like to invite Adam to come on, and I'll just introduce him. So Adam, tell us a little bit about, hi. Tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all.
Hi, my name's Adam Wilson. I'm married to Genevieve. We've got 2 kids, and we live in York, where I'm the assistant minister for a church called Trinity Church York. We've been here for a few years, but before that, I grew up in Nottingham, went to Liverpool for uni, studied in America in Philadelphia, and I've been here, there, and everywhere. But now we're working for a church here in York.
Nice. And just as a little fun one, why not tell us your favorite cereal and see if you can rate it out of 10 as well?
Well, I'll only tell you that if you promise to tell us how many cornflakes are in the box afterwards, because you've left us hanging. But I'm not massive on breakfast cereal, but now my kids this week, they discovered for their Saturday cereal, which is like, when you just load them with sugar on Saturday because they can bounce off the walls. Had Nesquik cereal, and I hadn't had that since I was a kid. It's so good. Like, it's basically Cocoa Pops but bigger, and it is the kind of cereal that you end up going, I'm going to keep an extra bowl back for myself a few times. It's good. But I want to know about the cornflakes. How many cornflakes are in the cornflake box?
There are actually 7,122 cornflakes on average in a cornflakes box. So I was thinking some people have got so many times in their hand to just like count every single one. My goodness, lockdown does that to some people, I guess. But
that is very true.
But without any further ado, Adam, if you'd like to talk to us about freedom.
Great. Yeah. Well, the title that I've been given this evening is The Wonder of Freedom. Is freedom more than just endless choice? Now, it seems like a pretty fitting start to this series of talks, considering most of you have begun to taste freedom by coming away to university for the first time, only to find yourself with less freedom than you had this time last year as you stare at your bedroom walls once again. Freedom is such a buzzword at the moment, because all of us are so desperate to be free. We want to be free to leave the house, to see our friends and hug them, to go to the pub. We feel like we're captives, just desperate to get out. Freedom is something we all crave, but the more you think about what is freedom, it gets pretty hard to pin down and to define. Is it more than endless choice, as our title suggests? Well, I sure hope so, because the reality is endless choice is not an option for you. Endless choice just doesn't exist, because you're not free to choose loads of things. You're not free to choose when you live, where you are born. You're not free to choose your genetic makeup, who you're related to. We're not free to kind of ignore gravity and float around with our friends for a while, socially distanced, of course. We're not free to do loads of things. The choices available to us are far from endless. But does that mean we're not free? Well, at the start of these 2 weeks of talks, I want to say to you very clearly that Christianity has something unique to say in answer to each of the topics that we're going to be addressing. And that is no less true than with the topic of freedom. Because Christianity, straight from the beginning, says something pretty surprising. It says, despite all the limitations that you experience by virtue of being a creature living in this world, you are free. You're not just the product of a blind, pitiless, indifferent universe, as Dawkins would have you think. And your choices aren't merely an illusion, because everything you choose is really just the product of a previous pool ball knocking you along to make your next decision on the cosmic pool table. No, your freedom is not a figment of your imagination. As in deterministic fashion, you go through the motions of existing. Far from it. Christianity says that God, the God who created all things, of his own free choice, decided to create people, to create you and to create me, people who are made in his image and who bear the family likeness in their ability to make real and free choices in the world that he's made. straight away, that should hit you as really wonderful news, because that means that what it means for us is that we are really free. We can begin to say things like, your choices really matter. That what you freely choose to do each day and the way that you choose to do it is something that is intrinsically filled with significance. Not only, though, do your choices matter, but you matter because you are the one making those choices. According to Christianity, you're not just a robot. You are God's creation, made with the freedom to make real choices in his world. But because our choices matter so much, because when we make them, they matter so much, it means that we have to deal with the consequences of having the freedom to make those choices. Let me explain what I mean. Because we live in the world that God has made, the same God who made you made this world that you live in, and he's made it filled with order and rationality and rules of how things should work. And so when we choose to go against the way God has designed the world to work, then we end up, with things not really working out so well. For example, if I'm free to keep on eating the amount of cream eggs that I keep eating each day at the moment, but I will have to live with the consequence of waddling slowly more and more. I'm completely free to go to the pub and have a few more pints than I should once lockdown's ended, but I'll have to deal with the consequence of having a head that weighs a ton in the morning. You are free to drive blindfolded. You're free to jump out of the plane without a parachute. But there are consequences for going against the way that God has designed the world to work. Now, that's true physically, but it's true on another level too. Because the God who formed you and formed this world has woven into the fabric of his creation a moral order too. And just like when we push against the physical order, we end up facing less than ideal consequences. The same is true when we go against the moral order of how God has designed his world to work. Like, God has told us that we shouldn't lie. And I'm sure, the heartbreak of being betrayed by someone who's lied to you. Like, God has told us to be faithful in relationships. And many of us have felt the sting of the love that we thought belonged to us being given to someone else. And the same is true of stealing and murdering. The same is true of forgiving and showing mercy. And we see how we have to deal with the consequences of living in a world where people use their freedom to push back against the way that God has made the world. And as people like you and me, who are wrestling with the world around us, trying to figure out what it means to be free in this kind of world, whether it's pushing back against the grain or simply going with it, people who are trying to figure out whether freedom is about being a rule breaker or being a rule keeper. It's in that context that Jesus tells a story about two sons and their father and what it really means to be free. Now, you don't have to worry if you haven't got a Bible, because the words are going to come up on your handout. And we're going to listen to this story from one of the Gospels that records the life of Jesus. It's the Gospel of Luke. And we're going to listen to parts of this story. And we're just going to pause at different points through it and see what Jesus has to say about what it means to be really free in this world that God has made with moral and physical order, where you have been made with freedom to make real choices. And so if you're sitting comfortably, then let's listen to Jesus tell this story, shall we? There was a man who had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. Let's just press pause there. So this father has two sons. And the first son says to his father, give me half of your money. Give me my inheritance. Now, you should be shocked by that, because when do you normally receive your inheritance? It's not a trick question. You receive your inheritance when your guardian or your parent dies. But the son says, give it to me now. Essentially saying, Father, I wish you were dead. I just want your money. I just want the good things that you've given. And I want to be free to use them however I want. I don't want to be held down by the house rules. I want to be free. And so off he goes. It's a shocking opener of a story, isn't it? But Jesus, in telling this story, is actually telling your story. He's telling my story, because all of us have in us this instinct to be just like this son. You see the father in this story as it unfolds. We're going to see that he is a picture of the good God who has given everything that we have. But foolishly, we don't want him. We just want his stuff. Deep down, we find this desire in us that we wish he was dead so that we'd be free to enjoy his stuff, this world, how we want. We want to break out from the house rules that we think are holding us back. But look at what happens to this younger son. Let's keep reading the story. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. And so he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. So he abandons his father, thinking that this is how he could be truly free. And he ends up having to hire himself out, not even able to eat the food that pigs eat. What he thought would make him free actually led to him being a slave. And that is all because he had lost the thing that he needed most. You see, the really sobering thing about this story is, as you seek to be free from God, it actually leads you to be a slave. The reason is because God alone can give his sons and daughters what they were created for, to know him, to be loved by him. Like, we think that life is found in being free from the Father, just like this son did. But instead, most of us have found that using our freedom like that, to flee from God, to break free from his house rules, and to run as far away from him as we can, and to use his stuff to our own ends. Well, most of us have found when we use our freedom like that, well, it's just like drinking salt water. It just makes you thirstier. Do you feel like that? Like we just need more friends, more love, more respect, more value, more joy, more happiness, more accolades. We always need more. And instead of getting to enjoy the good gifts that the Father has given, this son has given half of everything. And instead of enjoying it, just slips through his fingers until he's left in squalor. Instead of getting to enjoy the good things that God gives in his world, we end up being slaves to those things. I mean, really, who is more free? Like the girl who can't stop partying, or the girl who can't stop studying? Who's more free? The guy who can't stop training or the guy who can't stop gaming? The truth is, we all end up as slaves to something when we seek to be free from the God who made us. And we may not end up in a pigsty like this son did, but we all know what it is to be enslaved by something. To think we're free, but really this is the thing that controls our happiness, that controls our value, our identity, our purpose. And if this thing is lost, well, I'm nothing. We become a slave to these things that we thought would make us free. But look at what the son says. Let's continue the story. But he came to himself. Imagine that, sat in this pigsty. He came to himself and he said, how many of my father's servants have more than enough bread? But I perish here with hunger. I will arise and go to my father, and I'll say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. It's funny that you can almost imagine him, like, kind of preparing his speech, going over his lines again and again in his head as he gets up and starts walking towards his father's house, reciting it over and over. He's heading back towards his father's house. But the best he thinks he can hope for, after how he's used his freedom, is to slavishly serve his father instead. And that's what so many of us think Christianity is all about. And perhaps you do too. Like, we think after wishing God was dead and using the freedom he's given us to go and take what he's created, take what he's made and use it for our own ends. Like, the thing that we think God could offer us, like the best we could hope for, is being some kind of slave, some kind of servant, hoping that he'd give us at least a bit of bread. But look at what happens. Those who have wished the father dead, sought to be free from him and sought their freedom elsewhere, but come back to the father. Look at what happens. Verse 20, the next part of the story. And he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, he saw his father, he saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, he's fumbling for his lines that he's been reciting on the walk all the way there. Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father just said to his servant, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. The father, think about that. He sees his son from a long way off. And he doesn't say, look who comes crawling back. No, he runs out to meet him. He picks him up in his arms with great joy and prepares a feast to celebrate his son. Like, this son thought all that God would give him is the chance to exchange one slavery for another. But maybe this slavery will actually give me a bit more bread than the one that I'd previously been under. But instead, the father rejoices and restores him to the status he was made to enjoy. He is lavishly loved as this child. This son makes it emphatically clear. Freedom is not found in being free from the father, in breaking the rules. But it is clearly not found in slavishly keeping them either. No, the invitation of the Christian Union who have put on this event, the invitation of Jesus himself is to come back to the Father. Give up your slavish living, not to slavishly serve God instead, but to find freedom in belonging as a son and a daughter. Come to him with empty-handed, and come to him confessing, like this son, that we have sinned against him, wishing we were free from him, in the knowledge that he will restore to us the joy and blessing and freedom of knowing God as our Father once again. And if you are a Christian, maybe you're sat with one next to you, you'll know that changes everything, doesn't it? Like, no longer am I a slave to the things of this world as I desperately try and get from them what only God can give. But instead, I'm free to go out into the world and to live in line with the way that God has made the world to work. You see, Christians long to follow the house rules, to follow the order of which God has made this world to be structured by. Christians love to follow the house rules of their Father, not because we are slaves desperately trying to earn something from God, but because in knowing the Father, we have been set free as his children. We've been given everything. But sadly, the second son in the story doesn't get the message. Just listen to what happens. Now, his older son was in the field, and he came and drew near to the house, and he heard music and dancing. And he called to one of the servants and asked what these things meant. He said to him, "Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound." But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him. But he answered his father, "Look, these many years I have served you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who had devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him." And he said to him, "Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad. For your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found." What's sobering about that is this one son sought freedom away from his father, but this other son was a slave on his doorstep. Do you see that? He was so close to the Father, but he lived like a servant instead of a son, desperately trying to earn favor. "All these years," he says, "I've served you, and I've been given nothing." He's kind of self-righteous and cold, isn't he? And rather than loving his father, he resents him, thinking, "Joe, I kept all the rules. I forewent all of this freedom that your other son has gone and lavishly exploited. And here I've slavishly served you, and I've got nothing to show for it." But he doesn't understand, does he? Real freedom is found in knowing God as your Father, because those who know him have been given everything. It's possible to hang around with Christians. It's even possible to read a Bible. It's possible to live on the doorstep of the house of God, but still live like a servant and a slave. The Father invites you in, not to be his servant, but to be his son, to be his daughter. Is freedom endless choice? Not at all. Freedom is found in knowing God as your Father. And the reason that Jesus tells this story is not simply because, he's a wise teacher to help you see where you've gone wrong. He tells us this story because he is the Son of the Father, who knows perfect freedom because he's perfectly loved by his Father. But he has come. He has come, and out of that freedom, come to serve people like you and me, to invite us, to make a way, to welcome us into the Father's house. We're going to think loads more about that in the next 2 weeks, but I'm going to stop here with one last thing. What are you afraid of? Because I think often the thing that is really stopping us from being free is easily identified by the things you're most afraid of. That if you lost it, life wouldn't be worth living. If you got it, life wouldn't be worth living. And Jesus is telling us here, don't be a slave to those things. Instead, come and find a place in the Father's house. For that is where freedom really is. I'm going to stop there and hand back to you.
Wow, thank you so much, Adam, for that talk. Do you remember that you can always be sending in your questions on SLI.DO? I know that was very thought-provoking, so I'm sure there's many questions to be had. So just in case you weren't here, the code is on the screen. It is #wonder. And to access SLI.DO, there's either the link in the description or you can type in on your device SLI.DO. Okay. So now I'd like to introduce our first student who's going to give us a little bit of a kind of interview about what life has been like as a Christian and how that gives her freedom. So I'd like to introduce Coralie. Coralie, tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you?
Classic, sorry. Let's try that again. So I'm Coralie. I'm a third year medical student in Leeds at the moment. So yeah.
Nice. So what was younger Coralie like? Tell us a bit about that.
Great. So I grew up in Cambridge, had a really nice childhood, had lots of friends, had a really nice school. I had a lot of things to be grateful for. But I was also just a bit of a perfectionist, wanted to do well in everything. I had about 1 million different hobbies. I was doing dancing, I was playing the piano, I was like trying to do 1 million different things at school. And I think I was always kind of trying to achieve really highly in everything. And I built a lot of my identity in that, I guess. So yeah, that was me.
Wow, sounds like a lot of effort. At that point in your life, at that point in your life, if someone had asked you what you thought about Jesus, what do you think you would have said?
So I guess I always kind of thought that Jesus existed. I always thought there was a God, but I think my parents and a lot of the people around me kind of gave me the impression that God was there for when you needed him and you could do most of life on your own. Like if someone died in your family, if you were bereaved, if something really bad happened, then you go to God. But most of the time, you've got life, you can do it on your own. If you work hard at things, you can achieve. So yeah, that was kind of what I thought when I was younger.
So you spoke earlier about perfection and this leading to some more kind of difficult times in your life. Would you care to share that with us?
Yeah, sure. So I guess perfectionism was kind of viewed in our culture as not necessarily a bad thing a lot of the time, and sometimes it's okay, but I think I was striving for a lot of things and I had lots of things to be grateful for, and yet I was still really unhappy, and I was kind of just enslaving myself to achieving things or being around certain people, or just like building my identity on lots of little things like that. And yeah, I guess it just led to me feeling really like dissatisfied. I knew there was something more, and yet I couldn't find it. And yeah, I just kind of felt no sense of lusting kind of happiness. So kind of as I reached my teenage years, I just kind of really became quite depressed and anxious, and I just kind of got into a bit of a negative cycle of thinking where I just thought, well, if I control this in my life, then things will be better. So I kind of started to control food quite a bit. I kind of developed a bit of an eating disorder, and that spiraled, and I kind of lost, through me controlling more and more, I kind of lost more and more control of my life. I kind of trapped myself, and I just became really, really unwell. And it was separating me from the people around me, from people that I loved. I felt really isolated. And I just kind of, I couldn't see, I like had no perspective on how much I was losing. And yet, yeah, I just kept slipping. So eventually ended up really quite sick, getting admitted to hospital. And yeah, I was just kind of lost all my control. I had no freedom because I'd tried to exercise my own control over my life and it hadn't worked. And yeah, basically, yeah. So it wasn't a great place.
It's really nice to hear that you're not there anymore. Would you share with us how you kind of reached that better place mentally?
Sure. So I guess like being in hospital kind of made me recover a lot physically, and I had some really useful kind of therapy as well, like that kind of thing. But I kind of knew deep down that there was something more to life, that we can't make it on our own. I kind of realized through my experience that we are powerless. We are slaves to our own desires sometimes. And I realized that I needed to be part of something more, that's what my heart wanted. And I needed a joy that wasn't based on my circumstances or something that I could build myself, but a joy that was based on something outside of my selfish self. So I guess one thing that really helped was I had quite a lot of friends who happened to be like Christian and go along to church. So I started going along to a youth group, a local youth group, and kind of learned more about who Jesus was. And like, I just learned how much he loves me, and how much like I don't need to achieve anything on my own, and that, God has made us a certain way because he knows that we need him. And yeah, I'd kind of learned that I wasn't competent to run my own life, and yet Jesus loves us so much that he died on the cross for us, and that anything that we've ever done to separate us from him, he's taken that away, and he's chasing after us. And I guess it kind of sounds a bit like loosely connected, but there's a verse in the Bible that really resonates with me, that kind of it's from Romans. It says, "For I'm convinced that neither death nor life, nor angels nor demons, neither the present nor future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything in creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." And this means I'm kind of free from my old chains, because like someone really powerful loves me, and he loves the whole of creation, and he's chasing after us. So yeah, I guess that kind of sums up kind of where I am now. Like, I still get worried about things, and yet I know that there is a God, that God loves us so much that he is there for us, and he cares about our lives, and he's got us, and we don't need to save ourselves. So yeah.
Wow, thank you for that. And just lastly, what advice would you give to someone who's considering faith?
So for me, a really big part of how I've got to know who Jesus is and his promises over the last and how they relate to my life is just through reading the Bible. I think God speaks so powerfully through his word in the Bible, and I know that might sound a bit weird, like this ancient text that no one really how's that relevant to our lives today? But ultimately the Bible is just a story about real people with real problems, far bigger than some of my problems have ever been. And yeah, God just is so committed to his people, and he chases them down, and they keep doing stupid stuff like we all do stupid stuff, and yet he loves them anyway, and he's got them, and he ultimately answers everything that's ever gone wrong through Jesus. And so I'd say that reading the Bible is not like an academic exercise. It's a real experience of a real relationship. And I'd just say that I'd encourage you to read the Bible and see what it has to say for your own life. And I'm sure there's loads of people, if you've got Christian friends, who'd be willing to read that with you and do that journey with you. That's one thing I'd really recommend.
Thank you so much, Coralie. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So yes, now we've got that Q&A session that I've been promising us the whole time. Before we get started, I'd just like to introduce someone who's going to be on our panel today. A speaker called John is going to be joining us as we go through these questions. John, would you tell us just a little bit about yourself just before we start?
Right. I live normally in Ulaanbaatar, but I'm marooned in UK due to COVID. My job was translating the Bible, based on Greek and Hebrew, into Mongolian language, and my job is ministering of a church there and actually evangelizing. We evangelize through videos at the moment, and we get 40,000 listeners per video sometimes, or 30,000. So we're preaching, although we're in the UK, we're preaching to the world of Mongolia.
Wow, thanks for that. So without any further ado, I'll kick us off with the very first question that's been put into SLI.DO, and it is this: even if you follow God, can you truly be free from the bad things in your life, like abusive relationships or debt? Does following God take those things away?
That's a really fantastic question. So wonderfully, the promise of the freedom that God gives comes in two parts. Wonderfully, the first part that I'm going to talk about is the fact that God has promised that the end of history is guaranteed in the coming and the death and resurrection of Jesus. He's promised that because of what Jesus has done, and we'll come to that in a moment, that the world is heading to a remade place where there is no more pain, sickness, sadness, sorrow, suffering, that all those things are going to be done away with when Jesus returns. So is the guarantee that those things that we've just described, damaging relationships and the crippling burden of debt and those things, will they be removed in this life? Not necessarily. But there is real hope that one day, when Jesus returns, all wrongs will be righted, all evil undone, all sadness wiped away. But what is the guarantee that you get a place in that remade world, to know the freedom of knowing and enjoying God forever? What is the way that can be guaranteed for you? Well, that's why Jesus came. Jesus died to take away our sins, the things that we've done wrong, wishing that he was dead. That comes with a cost. And actually, the Bible's really clear that the cost of wanting God dead, the God who gives life, is that we deserve to die. But God comes in human flesh. The Son of God, Jesus Christ, comes and dies on the cross in our place and gloriously raises to new life. And everyone who puts their trust in him, who follows him, he promises that he will give them the guarantee of that world remade. Jesus has come to give that kind of hope to people. Now, does that mean that all of those burdens in this life will disappear? No. But there is real peace in knowing that God will one day remove them all, and that nothing's an accident. So even as really big burdens weigh you down, like, the wonderful comfort is that God is there to help you bear those burdens until you see him face to face when he comes back.
I'd very much agree with that. The point is, though, there is something that's very, very important. If you've done something wrong, you feel guilt about it, right? Now, does that guilt just disappear? Or is what you've done wrong recorded? The Bible says that everything we've done is recorded by God, and that one day we will stand before him and we will give answer. The question is not what people do to me, but what is in my heart and what I've done and the guilt that I have before God. And all of us, no matter how old you are or young, have a lot of things that we've done wrong that we're going to have to give answer for. What perfect freedom is the fact that Jesus Christ took the whole of that guilt and died for it and said, it is finished. And when you go before God, because of what Christ has done, God will say to you, not guilty. That is the best thing you can ever hear. That is perfect freedom. And that alone is perfect freedom. Do Christians in this life face problems of debt and broken relationships? Yes, they do. The statistics of divorce between Christians or non-Christians is more or less the same. God does not save you from this world. He brings you into eternity and completely justifies you in the face of God. That's freedom.
Thank you so much for that. Because of time, I'm going to insist that only one panelist answers the question, if that's okay. Thank you very much, though. So the next one is, how do I know that God's rules for living are best for me? I get that for some people it is, but I'm not sure if that's right for everyone. John or Adam?
How about I take this one, John? You can take the next one. So,
okay, that's fine. Good idea. Yeah.
Well, the answer is pretty clear. If God made the world, that he knows the best way to live in it. I mean, that's the short, like the long and short of it, really. Now, why do we think, well, actually, those rules don't really work for me? This is, God, I know that you are all wise, all powerful. I know that you know all things and know how all things work. But actually, I think I know a little bit better than you. I actually think that, I know how things work a little bit better than you do and what will be best for me. Now, the arrogance, you can even hear it, the pride of basically putting ourselves not even in the place of God, but above him. And that is really the heartbeat of sin, of rejecting and rebelling against God. But the good news is, again, that although God says, this is the best way to live my world, we all find that difficult. We're all like that son who wishes that God wasn't in charge making the rules for us and we could seek freedom in our own way. But the point is that will ultimately lead to ruin. We need to be restored to fellowship with our Father.
Thank you for that response. Okay, our next question, it may be our final one for now. So it says, how can freedom be possible for everyone? What about prisoners or victims of oppression? John?
Okay, very good question, because in this life, the victims of oppression normally very often stay in oppression. That is absolutely true. Does God intervene and free some people? And the answer is yes, he does. But you can say that of Christians or non-Christians. The point is, we cannot, because in my talk, I'm going to deal with the fact of evil in the world. And if you listen to that, you'll properly get the answer to this question, because this question is a simple question. It takes quite a bit to actually understand the answer properly. So we'll be going into that on Monday. But does God, inside the human mind, where is the oppression? Is it outside or is it actually in here? It's what's in here that will make you suffer more than other people. And God ministers to the heart, the mind, the spirit, and he gives freedom. In Mongolia, I was imprisoned for preaching the gospel, for telling people about Christ. I knew perfect freedom in that because God gives peace of mind. I've seen people around me extremely ill, death threats and everything, and God gives peace of mind. I know he gives what he describes as peace that the world cannot give beyond human understanding. That is true. That is true freedom from oppression, even when you're in oppression.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Adam, for those great responses. Thank you very much. So I'm gonna bring the occasion to a close, but before I do, I'd like to just discuss a few things that will be going on after this live stream. So after this live stream, why not join us on Zoom for our Wonder Cafe, where you and a friend can just chat over a drink, perhaps, and maybe about what you've heard tonight, or maybe chat to a couple of our Christian Union people there who will be more than happy to chat with you, get to know you better, and just really kind of welcome you into the community. We also have lots of other resources in order to assist that welcoming into the community. So we have Google sign-up sheets, which will really just help us get to know a bit more about yourself. It's just to know a bit more about you, your name, your email address, your phone number, and just to see if you want to know any more information regarding Wonder. We'd love to get to know you, and obviously, your information will not be used in any harmful way. We just love to get to know you. If you'd like to fill out that form, it's just a Google sheet. So if you'd like to just fill that in, that would be amazing. Also, before you go, maybe you're here and you're really skeptical about Christianity. One of the books on offer that we have as on our virtual bookshelf is Jesus for Skeptics. It's a really short and brief book, and it won't take you much time to read. And it examines the man that the Christian faith rises and falls on, which is Jesus. It looks at the evidence as to whether Jesus ever existed, examines whether the accounts of his life are reliable, and picks apart the details of his death and his resurrection. If you want to think hard about who Jesus really is, this is the book for you. So yeah, do pick that up. And there are lots of others on the website. Just before I go, please do come to Friday's event, where, as John said, he'll be speaking. This will be on the theme of the wonder of you, why God wants you, warts and all. So yes, if you were intrigued by tonight's topic and you really want to know the answer to that last Q&A, do pop along on Friday to hear John's talk. Okay, thank you so much for being here. We've really enjoyed speaking to you, and we'll see you again soon. Oh, sorry, before we go, do follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and we have lots of shareable videos for you to look at regarding the theme of wonder and just about what we've put on. So the latest video is about is it possible for us to know anything anymore, which I think is a really interesting topic. So look out for that on Facebook and Instagram and other social medias. So we'll see you soon. Bye for now.